Imagine a force so powerful it can end empires, darken the skies, and freeze the sun. This isn't science fiction. This is the raw, untamed power of Earth's volcanoes. Throughout history, these fiery mountains have been more than just geological wonders. They've been agents of change, shaping human civilization in ways we are still trying to understand. A single eruption can rewrite history, plunging societies into chaos and altering the very climate of our planet. Today, we journey back in time to witness two of the most cataclysmic volcanic events ever recorded. Events that left an indelible mark on the world. Our first stop is the Bay of Naples, Italy, in the year 79 AD here. Under the watchful gaze of Mount Vesuvius, thrived the bustling Roman city of Pompeii. It was a picture of prosperity, vibrant markets, luxurious villas, and citizens going about their daily lives, oblivious to the catastrophe brewing beneath their feet. They had no word for volcano. To them, Vesuvius was just a mountain, a beautiful backdrop to their idyllic existence. Earthquakes were common, but on that fateful August day, the tremors were a prelude to something far more sinister. Around noon, Vesuvius exploded with a force many times greater than an atomic bomb. A colossal column of ash, gas, and rock shot miles into the stratosphere, blocking out the sun and turning day into night. Panic gripped Pompeii, the air filled with choking ash and falling pumice stones, raining down on the terrified population. Some tried to flee, while others sought shelter in their homes, hoping to wait out the storm. But there was no escape. The eruption's most lethal phase was yet to come. Superheated pyroclastic flows of avalanches of gas and volcanic debris, reaching temperatures of hundreds of degrees, surged down the mountainous slopes at terrifying speeds. They incinerated everything in that path, engulfing Pompeii and its sister city Herculaneum in a matter of minutes. In an instant, a thriving Roman hub was wiped off the map, its people and their stories frozen in time. For nearly 1,700 years, Pompeii lay buried and forgotten under a thick blanket of hardened ash and pumice. It was a lost city, a myth whispered through generations. Then, in the 18th century, explorers stumbled upon it. What they found was astonishing. The very ash that had destroyed the city had also preserved it in breathtaking detail. Archaeologists discovered buildings, frescoes, and everyday objects, offering an unparalleled window into Roman life. Most hauntingly, they found voids in the compacted ash where the bodies of the victims had decomposed. By pouring plaster into these cavities, they were able to create casts of the people of Pompeii in their final moments, cowering in fear, embracing loved ones, forever captured at the instant of their death. The tragedy of Vesuvius gave us a time capsule, a poignant and powerful reminder of nature's destructive power and the fragility of human existence. The eruption didn't just end a city, it created a permanent monument to a moment in history. Now, let's fast forward nearly 1,800 years to 1815, to the island of Sumbawa, in what is now Indonesia. Here stood Mount Tambora, a volcano that was about to unleash the most powerful eruption in recorded human history. On April 10th, after days of rumbling and smaller explosions, Tambora blew its top in a cataclysmic blast, heard over 1,000 miles away. It ejected an estimated 150 cubic kilometers of ash, rock, and gas into the atmosphere, so much material that the mountain lost over 4,000 feet of its height. The immediate devastation was apocalyptic. The island of Sumbawa was scorched. Pyroclastic flows and volcanic tsunamis wiped out entire villages, claiming the lives of tens of thousands of people. But the true impact of Tambora was yet to be felt. This was not just a local disaster. It was a global one. The sheer volume of sulfur dioxide and ash, injected into the stratosphere, formed a massive aerosol veil that spread around the globe. This veil acted like a mirror, reflecting sunlight back into space and causing a dramatic drop in global temperatures. The world was about to experience a climate crisis of epic proportions. The year 1816 became known as the year without a summer. Across the northern hemisphere, the weather went haywire. In North America, a persistent dry fog dimmed the sun. Snow fell in June in New England and New York, killing off newly planted crops. Unseasonal frosts and ice storms plagued farmers through July and August, leading to widespread crop failure and famine. People were forced to eat raccoons, pigeons, and whatever they could find to survive. Europe was hit even harder. The cold, relentless rains were catastrophic. Harvests failed across Britain, Ireland, France, and Germany. Food prices skyrocketed, leading to riots and social unrest. Ireland suffered a massive typhus epidemic, exacerbated by the famine. The Thames River froze in the middle of summer. In Switzerland, the constant gloom and rain created a bleak, otherworldly atmosphere. It was during this dreary summer that a group of writers, including Lord Byron and Mary Shelley, were confined indoors by the miserable weather. Trapped and inspired by the Gothic gloom, Mary Shelley wrote her masterpiece, Frankenstein, a story born from the ashes of a distant volcano. The global impact was profound. Tambra's eruption triggered the last great subsistence crisis in the Western world. It led to mass migrations, social upheaval, and economic depression. In China, the cold weather destroyed crops, leading to widespread famine. In India, the disruption of the monsoon season may have contributed to a new, deadly strain of cholera that would eventually spread across the globe in a series of pandemics. From the frozen tragedy of Pompeii to the global chill of the year without a summer. These volcanic events demonstrate how deeply our world is connected to the geological forces beneath our feet. They are not just stories of destruction, but stories of consequence, change, and even unexpected creation. They remind us that history is written not only by humans but by the planet itself. The Earth is a dynamic Levin system, and its immense power continues to shape our world and our future. The ground beneath our feet feels solid, a foundation we trust without a second thought. But what happens when that foundation betrays us? When the Earth itself can rise and fall in moments, leaving only silence and rubble? For millennia, humanity has lived with a terrifying truth. The very planet we call home can become our most formidable adversary. Earthquakes, these sudden, violent shakings of the ground, have shaped not just our landscapes, but the course of human history, rewriting the fates of entire civilizations in a matter of minutes. We'll explore the moments the world seemed to end for millions, and uncover the stories of destruction, survival, and the enduring power of nature. Our story begins in Lisbon, Portugal, on the morning of November 1st, 1755. It was All Saints' Day, a major Catholic holiday. The city's grand churches and cathedrals were filled to capacity with worshippers, their candles flickering, their prayers echoing through stone vaults. Lisbon was one of the wealthiest and most magnificent cities in the world, the heart of a vast global empire. Its port bustled with ships carrying gold from Brazil, spices from India, and treasures from across the seas. Its streets were a labyrinth of narrow medieval alleys and grand new avenues, lined with palaces, libraries, and art-filled monasteries. No one could have imagined that this golden age was about to be shattered. At approximately 9:40 a.m., the ground began to tremble. This was not the first tremor the city had experienced, but this was different. Witnesses describe a terrifying, deep rumble coming from the bowels of the earth. The shaking intensified violently. Within moments, the joyous sounds of the holy day were replaced by a deafening roar as buildings began to collapse. The great stone arches of the cathedrals, designed to inspire AOB, became instruments of death, crashing down upon the congregations below. Thousands were killed instantly. Ornat, Palace's centuries of architectural genius, crumbled into dust. The Royal Ribera Palace, which housed a library of over 70,000 priceless volumes and hundreds of artworks by masters like Titian and Rubens, was utterly destroyed. It was a cultural catastrophe, an irreplaceable loss of knowledge and art, gone in an instant. For those who survived the initial cataclysm, the horror was far from over. As they stumbled through the ruins, choked by dust, a new terror emerged from the sea. The earthquake's epicenter was in the Atlantic Ocean, some 200 kilometers away. It had generated a colossal tsunami. Eyewitnesses watched in disbelief as the water in the Tagus estuary receded, exposing the harbor floor, littered with lost cargo and forgotten shipwrecks. Some people, tragically, rushed to the newly exposed land to gather valuables, but then the sea returned. 3 massive waves, some estimated to be up to 20 meters high, surged into the city. They swept up the river, engulfing the entire downtown area. The wave didn't just flood, it was a wall of churning water, carrying the debris of shattered ships and buildings, acting like a battering ram that obliterated everything left standing in its path. Thousands more were swept away, drowned in the very heart of their city. As if this wasn't enough, a third wave of destruction followed. The candles that had been lit for the All Saints' Day services were knocked over in the earthquake, igniting fires throughout the ruined city. The fires quickly merged into a raging firestorm, fanned by strong winds. The blaze consumed the densely packed wooden structures of the city for 5 days. The narrow streets acted like flues, turning the city into a furnace. Those who had survived the quake and the tsunami were now trapped by a sea of fire. The heat was so intense, it was said to have melted metal. The air filled with smoke and the stench of death. When the flames finally died down, an estimated 85% of Lisbon was in ruins. The death toll is hard to pinpoint, but modern estimates range from 30,000 to 60,000 people in Lisbon alone, with thousands more killed by the tsunami in coastal areas of Portugal, Spain, and even North Africa. The Lisbon earthquake was more than just a natural disaster. It was a profound shock to the European psyche. At the height of the Enlightenment, an era that celebrated reason and human progress, this event felt like a cruel, incomprehensible act. Philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau grappled with its meaning. How could a benevolent God allow such indiscriminate suffering? The event fundamentally challenged prevailing philosophical and religious beliefs and, in many ways, helped usher in the modern era of seismology and disaster preparedness. The Prime Minister at the time, the Marquis of Pombal, responded with remarkable pragmatism. He famously ordered to bury the dead and heal the living, and initiated one of the first ever systematic inquiries into the effects of an earthquake, distributing questionnaire across the country to gather data. This was the birth of modern scientific study of earthquakes. The rebuilding of Lisbon, with its grid-like streets and earthquake-resistant architectural designs, became a model for modern urban planning. Now, let us travel further back in time and halfway across the world to Ming Dynasty China. The year is 1556. While Europe was on the cusp of its scientific revolution, China was a vast and ancient empire governed by complex bureaucratic systems. Here, the relationship with nature was deeply ingrained in philosophy and daily life, often viewed as a reflection of cosmic and political harmony. An earthquake was not just a geological event. It was often interpreted as a sign of heaven's displeasure with the ruling emperor. In the early morning hours of January 23rd, this belief would be put to the ultimate test in the provinces of Shanxi and neighboring Shanxi. This region, located in the Fertile Wei River Valley, is a cradle of Chinese civilization. It was a densely populated area, characterized by its unique loess-sola-fine, silt-like sediment deposited by wind over millions of years. This soil was easy to farm, but it also had a peculiar quality. For centuries, residents had carved their homes directly into the soft loess cliffs, creating artificial caves known as ya. These dwellings were cool in the summer and warm in the winter, an ingenious adaptation to the local environment. But this ingenuity would prove to be a fatal vulnerability. The earthquake that struck that morning is now estimated to have been around magnitude 8 on the Richter scale. The seismic waves ripped through the region, and the loess soil, so soft and workable, behaved catastrophically. The artificial caves, the homes of millions, simply collapsed. Entire communities were buried alive in an instant as the cliff sides gave way. The ground itself liquefied in some areas, swallowing everything on the surface. Massive landslides cascaded down the hills, burying entire villages under tons of earth. Fissures, some reported to be 20 meters deep, opened up in the ground, and the landscape was permanently and violently resculpted. The devastation was almost beyond comprehension. In some counties, the mortality rate was over 60%. The city of Waxian, near the epicenter, was almost completely destroyed, and every single building collapsed. In the aftermath, the official annals of the Ming Dynasty recorded the event with chilling brevity. One account reads, "Mountains and rivers changed their places, and roads were destroyed. In Soma places the ground suddenly rose up and formed new hills, or it sank abruptly and became new valleys. In other areas, a stream burst out in an instant, or the ground broke and new gullies appeared. Huts, official houses, temples and city walls collapsed all of a sudden. The total death toll of the 1556 Shanxi earthquake is the highest ever recorded for any earthquake in human history. Historical records estimate that approximately 830,000 people perished. This number is staggering, a testament to the deadly combination of a powerful quake and a vulnerable population density. The scale of the loss is difficult to grasp. It was more than just lives lost. It was the obliteration of a generation, the erasure of entire towns and their histories. The recovery was slow and painful. The Ming government, burdened by the immense cost of relief and reconstruction, was severely weakened. The emperor, in keeping with tradition, performed acts of penance to appease heaven, but the social and economic fabric of the region was torn apart for decades. Comparing these two monumental disasters reveals a shared, terrible truth. In both Lisbon and Shanxi, it wasn't just the shaking of the ground that caused such immense loss of life. It was the way human civilization was built. In Lisbon, it was the towering, heavy stone churches that became tombs. In Shanxi, it was the fragile cave dwellings carved from soft earth. In both cases, the environment that had nurtured life became the agent of its destruction. These events force us to confront our own vulnerability. They remind us that for all our technological advancement and architectural prowess, we live on a dynamic, ever-changing planet. The tectonic plates beneath us are always in motion, building pressure that must eventually be released. Today, we have satellites that can measure the movement of continents to the millimeter. We have seismographs that detect the faintest tremors. We build skyscrapers on giant shock absorbers and design infrastructure to withstand incredible forces. We have learned so much from the tragedies of the past. Yet, even now, a major earthquake in a densely populated modern city remains one of our greatest fears. The stories of Lisbon and Shanxi are not just historical footnotes. They are solemn warnings written into the very rock of our planet. They teach us humility, they drive our quest for knowledge, and they underscore the critical importance of resilience, preparation, and respecting the immense power of the natural world. The ground may seem still, but the earth is always alive. Every disaster leaves a mark, a warning, and a lesson for those who follow. Throughout history, humanity has faced nature's wrath, from the earth-shattering eruption of Vesuvius that buried Pompeii to the Great Flood of China in 1931. These events are not just stories of loss, they are crucial case studies in survival, adaptation, and sometimes tragic failure. What can these ancient catastrophes teach us about our own future? Let's travel back in time. The Minoan civilization, a vibrant Bronze Age culture on the island of Crete, was a maritime powerhouse. But around 1600 BC, the nearby volcanic island of Thera, now known as Santorini, erupted with a force hundreds of times greater than any modern nuclear weapon. The eruption triggered a colossal tsunami that smashed into the Minoan coast, crippling their fleet and coastal cities. Volcanic ash blanketed their farmlands, leading to crop failure and famine. While not an instant collapse, this single event fundamentally weakened the Minoans, making them vulnerable to invasion and eventual decline. A society's strength, no matter how great, is always subject to the immense power of the natural world. Over-reliance on a single asset, like their naval fleet, proved to be their Achilles heel. Contrast this with the ancient city of Cahokia, near modern-day St. Louis. It was the largest and most influential urban settlement of the Mississippian culture. For centuries, it thrived. But by 1350 AD, it was virtually abandoned. Evidence points to a combination of factors exacerbated by environmental change. Over-deforestation for construction and fuel led to massive soil erosion and localized flooding of the Mississippi River. A period of climate change, the Little Ice Age, brought colder, drier conditions, making it harder to grow their staple crop, maize. The Cahokians couldn't adapt quickly enough. Their social and political structures, perhaps strained by resource scarcity, fractured. The collapse of Cahokia serves as a stark reminder that unsustainable practices can have devastating, long-term consequences. It teaches us that environmental stewardship isn't a modern luxury. It's a timeless necessity for survival. The ancestral Pueblones of the American Southwest built incredible cliff dwellings, like those at Mesa Verde. Why? For centuries, they farmed on the mesa tops, but around the 12th and 13th centuries, A prolonged drought set in. To protect their precious water sources from evaporation and to find more defensible positions amid growing social tensions, they moved their entire communities into alcoves in the cliff faces. These were marvels of engineering and social cooperation. They built check dams and terraces to manage every drop of water. While they eventually migrated away from these sites, their ability to radically change their way of life in response to environmental pressure demonstrates incredible ingenuity and resilience. They didn't just endure the crisis, they innovated their way through it. So what have we learned? The Minoans show us the danger of a single, catastrophic blow. The Cahokians illustrate the slow, creeping death from environmental self-destruction. And the Pueblones reveal the power of collective innovation in the face of crisis. These historical echoes are more relevant today than ever before. We live in an interconnected global society, but we face modern volcanoes and droughts in the form of climate change, pandemics, and resource depletion. This brings us to our modern understanding of disaster preparedness. We've moved beyond simply reacting to disasters. Today, it's a science. We use sophisticated satellite technology to track hurricanes, seismographs to monitor tectonic plates, and complex climate models to predict future trends. Early warning systems are a cornerstone of this approach. In countries like Japan, a nation forged by earthquakes and tsunamis, disaster preparedness is woven into the fabric of daily life. From the moment a child enters school, they participate in regular earthquake drills. Buildings are constructed to sway, not shatter. Coastal areas have massive seawalls and clearly marked evacuation routes. This culture of preparedness saves countless lives when disaster inevitably strikes. It's not just about technology, it's about building resilient communities from the ground up. This means diversifying our food and energy sources so that a single point of failure doesn't cripple the entire system. It means creating robust supply chains that can withstand disruption. It involves public education, community emergency response teams, and ensuring that our infrastructure, our power grids, our communication networks, our water systems are fortified against potential threats. The lessons from Pompeii and Cahokia are clear. Ignoring the warning signs, whether from a rumbling volcano or a slowly degrading environment, leads to ruin. We have the unprecedented advantage of historical hindsight and scientific foresight. The question is, are we using it wisely? Are we building our modern world to be a Mesa Verde, adaptable and resilient? Or are we setting ourselves up to be the next Pompeii? The choices we make today will write the story of our survival for generations to come. Even in the wake of destruction, life finds a way to endure, rebuild, and rise again. This isn't just a hopeful sentiment. It is a fundamental truth of our history. We've seen how civilizations can fall, but the story doesn't end there. The human spirit, coupled with the relentless power of nature, has a remarkable capacity for recovery. Think of Hiroshima. In 1945, a single weapon leveled the city, leaving behind an almost unimaginable landscape of ruin. Many believed the land would be barren for decades, unable to support life. Yet, within a year, against all odds, new shoots began to sprout from the scorched earth. The people of Hiroshima, driven by a profound will to live and a commitment to peace, began to clear the rubble and rebuild, brick by brick. Today, Hiroshima is a vibrant, modern city. The Abom Dome stands as a silent, powerful memorial, but surrounding it is a testament to rebirth, a bustling metropolis that chose not to be defined by its darkest day, but by its capacity to heal. Consider the aftermath of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Entire coastal communities across multiple countries were wiped from the map in a matter of hours. The scale of the loss was staggering, but in the years that followed, something extraordinary happened. International aid poured in, but more importantly, local communities rallied. Fishermen rebuilt their boats, families rebuilt their homes, and neighbors helped neighbors. A critical part of this recovery was ecological. In many areas, communities began replanting mangrove foresties, natural coastal barriers that had been cleared for development. They recognized that working with nature, not against it, was key to their long-term security. Today, those replanted mangroves stand as living shields, a symbol of a lesson learned and a community reborn. Nature itself is the ultimate master of recovery. When the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded in 1986, it created an exclusion zone, an area deemed too radioactive for human life. Humans left, and in our absence, nature returned with a vengeance. The ghost city of Pripyat is now being reclaimed by the forest. Trees grow through the floors of abandoned schools, and wildlife roams freely through the empty streets. Wolves, wild boar, and even endangered species of horses have found a sanctuary in this place of human failure. It's a haunting but powerful illustration that life is incredibly tenacious. It adapts and finds a way, even in the most inhospitable environments we create. These stories, from the ashes of Hiroshima to the reclaimed forests of Chernobyl, bring us to a final reflection on the timeless dance between the power of nature and the ingenuity of humanity. Nature will always be the more powerful force. It operates on geological timescales, with energies that dwarf our greatest creations. We cannot conquer it. The floods, the earthquakes, the volcanoes are reminders of our place within a much larger system. But human ingenuity is its own kind of force. It's the force that allows us to understand these natural powers, to predict their movements, and to build societies that can withstand their fury. It's the social cohesion that allows us to rebuild after loss, and the empathy that drives us to help strangers on the other side of the world. The greatest triumphs of humanity are not in trying to dominate nature, but in learning to live in harmony with it. Our resilience is not just in the concrete and steel we use to rebuild our cities, but in our ability to learn, to adapt, and to care for one another. The future of our civilization depends on this wisdom, the understanding that our greatest strength lies in our humility before nature and our faith in each other. Before recorded time, our planet has unleashed forces beyond human imagination. These are not just stories or myths. They are the moments that reshaped civilizations and rewrote history itself. We live on a world of breathtaking beauty, but beneath its serene surface lies a power that is both creative and destructive. A power that can shatter continents, boil oceans, and blot out the sun. For millennia, humanity has witnessed this fury firsthand. We've seen mountains explode with the force of 1,000 suns. Rivers swell to become raging inland seas, and the very ground beneath our feet crack open and swallow cities whole. These are the great catastrophes, the turning points in the epic saga of our planet and our species. We often think of history in terms of kings, queens, and empires. But what if the greatest rulers, the most formidable conquerors, were not human at all? What if they were the volcanoes, the earthquakes, the floods, and the storms? These are the events that have dictated where we live, how we build, and even what we believe. They are the terrifying, awe-inspiring moments when nature reminds us of our true place in the cosmos. We will travel from the ash-entombed streets of Pompeii to the storm-battered coasts of the modern day. We'll explore the science behind these cataclysms, piecing together the evidence left in the rock, the ice, and the historical records. We will witness the terrifying power of the Earth's inner fire, the relentless force of its oceans, and the sheer fury of its atmosphere. This is not just a history of disaster. It's a story of survival, of resilience, and of humanity's unending struggle to understand and adapt to the awesome power of the world we call home. We will sift through the ruins of lost civilizations, examining the geological fingerprints and archaeological clues that tell a story of sudden, violent ends, from the mysterious collapse of the Minoan civilization, possibly triggered by one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history, to the Lisbon earthquake of 1755 that shook the foundations of European thought. These events are more than just historical footnotes. They are profound lessons, written in fire and stone. We'll look at the year without a summer in 1816, when a volcanic eruption on the other side of the world plunged the northern hemisphere into a chilling darkness, causing widespread famine and social unrest. We will investigate the great floods that have inspired myths of global like the 1931 China floods, the deadliest natural disaster of the 20th century, which claimed millions of lives and displaced tens of millions more. These are the moments when the familiar world vanishes, replaced by a landscape of chaos and uncertainty. We'll examine the science that allows us to understand these forces today. How do tectonic plates build up tension over centuries, only to release it in a matter of seconds, generating earthquakes that can level cities? How does a supervolcano slumber for millennia, gathering its strength for an eruption that could alter the global climate for decades? And how are we, today, using this knowledge to prepare for the inevitable future events. The story of Earth's fury is not over. It is an ongoing narrative, and we are all living in its next chapter. We will see how these events have shaped our art, our literature, and our religions. How the terror of a volcanic eruption is captured in ancient frescoes, and how the humbling power of a tsunami is immortalized in woodblock prints. These catastrophes forced our ancestors to ask fundamental questions about existence, fate, and the forces that govern the universe. Their attempts to answer those questions echo down to us today. This is a journey into the heart of chaos, a chronicle of the Earth's most violent moments, but it is also a testament to the enduring spirit of life. It's a reminder that for all our technology and ambition, we are inhabitants of a dynamic, powerful, and sometimes unforgiving planet. Understanding its past is crucial to navigating our future. Prepare to witness the awesome and terrifying power of our world as we uncover the history of its greatest disasters. Water gives life. It nourishes, it cleanses, it sustains. But when the heavens open and the rivers swell, reclaims, it reminds us of a power far older and more profound than our own. Throughout history, humanity has built its greatest achievements along the banks of rivers and the shores of oceans, seeking the life-giving embrace of water. Yet, time and again, that embrace has become a crushing grip. Rivers and oceans reclaim their territory, drowning cities and empires alike in a relentless, unforgiving surge. This is the story of water's wrath, a force that has shaped our world in ways we are only beginning to understand. In the spring of 1927, the heart of America faced a deluge of biblical proportions. The Mississippi River, the great artery of the nation, began to swell. Unprecedented rainfall across the central United States pushed the river and its tributaries past their limits. Levees, earthen walls, built to tame the mighty river, were thought to be humanity's triumph over nature, but they were no match for what was coming. The Great Mississippi Flood of 1927 was not a single event, but a slow, creeping catastrophe. The river clawed at its man-made confines for weeks, until finally, on April 21st, near Grenville, Mississippi, the levees broke. A wall of water, wider than the river itself, surged across the landscape. It didn't just flood the land, it erased it. Entire towns vanished beneath a brown, churning sea. The water moved with such force it ripped homes from their foundations and twisted railroad tracks into spaghetti. It inundated an area the size of New England, displacing nearly 700,000 people, almost 1% of the entire US population at the time. The social and political fallout was immense. The disaster exposed deep-seated inequalities and sparked one of the largest internal migrations in American history. As thousands of displaced sharecroppers, mostly African American, left the rural South for northern cities, it was a stark lesson that our control over nature is often an illusion. But this struggle is not a modern one. Go back thousands of years to the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This land, known as Mesopotamia, was the cradle of civilization. Here, cities like Ur and Uruk rose from the dust, pioneering writing, law, and agriculture. Their very existence depended on the rivers. They developed intricate systems of canals and irrigation, masterpieces of ancient engineering designed to channel the life-giving water to their fields. This mastery allowed them to create a surplus of food, freeing people to become artisans, priests, and kings. Yet, the archaeological and geological records tell another, darker story. Buried beneath the sun-baked earth are layers of silt and clay, evidence of catastrophic floods that periodically wiped the slate clean. Ancient Sumerian texts, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, speak of a great flood sent by the gods to destroy humanity. For a long time, this was considered mere mythology, but scientists have found evidence of a massive flood around 2900 BC that submerged the entire region. It wasn't just a high river. It was a civilization-ending event. For the people who survived, it would have seemed like the end of the world. These events are woven into the cultural DNA of the region, a constant reminder that the same rivers that birthed their civilization held the power to destroy it. The impact of such floods extends far beyond the immediate destruction. When floodwaters recede, they can leave behind a layer of fertile silt, enriching the soil and boosting agricultural productivity. This is the paradox of the flood. Destruction and creation in one single act. The annual flooding of the Nile, for instance, was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt. It was so predictable and essential that the entire Egyptian calendar was based around it. The floods deposited rich, black soil, allowing for bountiful harvests in the middle of a desert. However, unpredictable, catastrophic floods are a different matter. They destroy crops, leading to famine. They wash away topsoil, rendering land barren for years. The collapse of entire civilizations has been linked to shifts in climate that brought about devastating floods or droughts. The Harappan civilization in the Indus Valley, one of the most advanced of its time, mysterious declined around 1900 BC. Evidence suggests that a series of massive, unpredictable floods may have disrupted their agricultural base and trade routes, leading to a slow, inexorable collapse. They had built a world on the river's edge, and when the river turned against them, their world crumbled. The story repeats across the globe. In China, the Yellow River has been called China's sorrow for its long and tragic history of deadly floods. Its course has shifted dramatically dozens of times over the centuries, each time causing immense devastation and reshaping the political landscape. The 1931 China floods are considered the deadliest natural disaster ever recorded, with a death toll estimated in the millions. The sheer scale is almost unimaginable. The water didn't just rise, it created a vast inland sea. As we look at the ruins of ancient cities half buried in mood or trace the old, abandoned paths of rivers on satellite maps, we see a recurring pattern. We build, we thrive, and we forget. We forget that the land we stand on was shaped by water. We forget that riverbeds and coastlines are not fixed, but are in a constant, dynamic dance with the water that flows over them. Today, as our climate changes, that dance is becoming more violent. Sea levels are rising, and extreme weather events are becoming more common. The lessons from the Mississippi, from Mesopotamia, from the Yellow River, have never been more relevant. The story of floods is not just about water. It's about hubris, resilience, and the enduring power of the natural world. It's a reminder that we are not masters of this planet, but guests. And the host has a long memory. The water always remembers where it used to flow, and sooner or later, it will try to go home. We can build our levees higher, our sea walls stronger, but the fundamental truth remains. Water will find a way. The challenge for our civilization is to learn to live with that truth, to respect the power of water rather than trying to conquer it. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that in a war against water, there is only one winner. A single spark, a flicker in the dark, can ignite an inferno that erases history in a single night. Throughout our past, great cities, beacons of human achievement, have been brought to their knees, not by armies or kings, but by the untamed power of fire. Imagine London in 1666, a sprawling city of timber and thatch, a labyrinth of narrow, overcrowded streets. It began in a baker's shop on Pudding Lane, a seemingly insignificant accident, but fanned by a strong easterly wind. The flames leaped from rooftop to rooftop. For days, the fire raged, a monstrous, unstoppable beast. When the smoke cleared, over 13,000 houses were gone. 87 parish churches lay in ruin. The magnificent St. Paul's Cathedral, a symbol of London's might, was a hollowed-out shell. The fire consumed not just buildings, but records, businesses, and countless personal histories, turning a medieval city into a blank canvas of ash. While the official death toll was surprisingly low, the true human cost, the displacement, the loss of livelihoods, the sheer terrors immeasurable. Yet, from these ashes, a new London rose, rebuilt with brick and stone, a testament to resilience, forever shaped by the memory of the Great Fire. This was not an isolated event. Travel back further, to ancient Rome, the heart of an empire. Rome burned many times, but the Great Fire of 64 AD under Emperor Nero remains infamous. For 6 days, flames tore through the densely populated districts. 10 of Rome's 14 districts were damaged or completely destroyed. Temples, public buildings, and thousands of homes vanished. Historians like Tacitus describe scenes of chaos and despair, people fleeing with no escape route, the city's splendor turning to soot. The fire wiped out irreplaceable works of art and literature, erasing vast swaths of cultural heritage. Whether started by accident or by Nero's own design, as rumors claimed, the result was the same. A catastrophic loss that reshaped the eternal city and echoed through the annals of history. These fires remind us of our vulnerability, that the grandest civilizations can be reduced to embers by a force of nature we try, but often fail, to control. But what of the destroyers we cannot see? The enemies that wage war not with flame, but in silence. What we cannot see often destroys more than what we can. These are the invisible catastrophes. The pandemics that have swept across continents, leaving a trail of devastation far greater than any fire. In the mid-14th century, a terrifying shadow fell over Europe. It arrived on merchant ships, carried by rats and their fleas. They called it the Black Death. It was an unseen terror, spreading with horrifying speed. In just a few years, the bubonic plague wiped out an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of Europe's entire population. Imagine entire villages vanishing. Cities where the living were too few to bury the dead. Society ground to a halt. The economy collapsed. The psychological impact was profound, shaking the very foundations of faith and social order. People saw it as a divine punishment, a world ending before their eyes. The scale of death was so immense, it's almost impossible to comprehend today. It altered the course of European history, leading to massive social, religious, and economic upheaval, proving that the deadliest foe is one that travels on the air we breathe. Centuries later, as the world was recovering from the First World War, another invisible enemy emerged. It became known as the Spanish flu of 1918. It was a new strain of influenza, and it was extraordinarily lethal. Unlike typical flu, it struck the young and healthy with particular ferocity. In a world with no vaccines or antibiotics to fight it, the virus spread like wildfire across the globe, reaching every continent. It is estimated that it infected 1/3 of the world's population and killed at least 50 million people, more than the Great War itself. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Public life shut down. Fear and uncertainty gripped every community. People wore masks. Public gatherings were banned. But still, the virus spread. The 1918 pandemic was a stark reminder that even in the modern age, with all our scientific progress, humanity remains vulnerable to the invisible forces of nature. From the charred ruins of ancient cities to the silent, empty streets of a world in lockdown, these disasters tell a story of loss and resilience. They show us how fragile our civilizations are, how quickly the familiar can be taken away, but they also show our capacity to endure, to rebuild, and to learn. The scars of history, whether left by fire or by plague, are not just reminders of what we have lost, but are also maps that guide us, teaching us to build a more resilient future. For in the end, the human story is not just one of tragedy, but of the unyielding spirit that rises again and again from the ashes. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If you found this story fascinating, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the forces that have shaped our world. See you next time.